Hey there, world. Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about something that all of us will probably already feel, and that is that Venus just entered Aries, and together with that, she will conjunct, so be exactly together on the same spot as Neptune is by tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, Friday evening, Central European time at least. It's something we will be feeling very much for this weekend, but something that lays also the ground for how the next 5 weeks of Venus in Aries will feel like for all of us. And there are a few very interesting things to consider, of course, because of where Venus was just at, the ending of a retrograde cycle, the long conjunction to Saturn and Pisces, the back and forth from Aries to Pisces, and how that weaves in to the eclipses and the eclipse pattern and Neptune and Saturn changing from Pisces to Aries and so on and so forth. So I am going to try to keep this short because Aries kind of doesn't have much patience. And we also might be feeling that. But also because there is so much to say and I don't want to overload you or me. And so let's see how concise I can keep it. Anyhow, tying Venus's movements into this greater cycle of where she's been coming from, what moon cycle we were just in, what moon cycle is coming, and all of these greater unfoldment that especially Neptune and Saturn signal in their shift from Pisces to Aries. This feels very significant and very important in the considerations of how to read this energy. Venus in Aries, first of all, talks about where and how can I deepen my relationship to my own instincts, my own truth, my radical, honest directness, and where and how can I come into greater balance and harmony, Venus, a deeper love and appreciation for trusting my instincts, for trusting how I act on things. Tendencies can be to be impulsive or impatient. I want my desires fulfilled now, and if you don't align with them, I'm going to shoot you to the highway, right? Or to get angry and defensive, where aggression or attack is the best defense, right? Whenever we feel like we can't be free, we can't be who we want to be, we can't be who our instincts tell us that we need to be. So in Aries embedded, there is this huge and deep desire for freedom, something that normally we tend to think and associate with Sagittarius and Aquarius archetype. And both of them deal with freedom much more on a philosophical or higher mental concept. With Aries, that desire and need for freedom is a deeply embodied one. It's a deeply instinctual one. It's a desire to be able to live as one feels one has to live, to be true to ourselves. And so this can create a lot of anger or a lot of resistance coming from a fear whenever we feel like we can't be free. Venus in Aries thus signals the next 5 weeks. It's about being honest and direct and open with our feelings, with what we feel in regards to another, whether that's friend or family or foe, to wear our hearts a bit on the sleeves, but so that people can see where we are at and who we actually are. The other side of that is, of course, to learn to listen to the other more. Venus is always about listening. Venus and the Libra archetype are so much about listening. And with Venus in Aries, we can fall into tendencies of not wanting to listen to another, but only needing to pay attention to how my desires are being fulfilled right now. How do I feel about something? The fact, though, that she's meeting up with Neptune right as this begins, this Venus and Aries moment, which is kind of like a recapitulation also of early March, late February and March when Venus went retrograde. So Venus meeting Neptune, these are the two levels of love. Venus is the earthy, human, embodied sense of love and relationships. And Neptune is the transcendental vision, the high ideal that we're all yearning for, which on some level or another, we always come up to a perspective and realization of disillusionment, where and how physical reality and physical relationships and other people don't live up to that fairy tale ideal. Or they might for a second, and then we feel even more disillusioned when they don't anymore. So with Venus and Neptune, there's this deep longing, this deep sensitivity, a high romantic idealization that we can put onto others or the world or ourselves. A yearning to want to escape, a longing for something higher or deeper, maybe even if we never actually experienced that. So it's not like we have one perfect experience that we once had that we're always striving back towards to reaching with Neptune, but it can often even be experiences of whatever I feel in regards to the Aries sector of my chart also, right? So pay attention to where is Aries in your chart, because this will tell you so much about this. Is Aries in your 4th house? So does it even more deal with home, belonging, where you live, your roots, your family? Does it deal with your 10th house, career, vocation, your purpose on this greater societal level? Wherever Aries sits on your chart, you might be feeling these feelings right now of a yearning, a longing for something transcendental or perfect or beyond, which when you maybe think back on it, you actually never experienced in your life. Maybe you never had that ideal home or the ideal place where you really felt like you belong, and still you can yearn for that. Or the ideal partner, or the ideal job, or the ideal friend group, or whatever, the ideal spiritual practice. Still, Neptune inspires us to yearn for more, to long for more, to strive for more. Bringing it all down back to Aries, here's an impulse to act. We need to learn to act. Yeah, all of life is transient and in the end ephemeral and ethereal and all just this game of light and shadow. The dream of God that we're all dreaming, that we're a part of. But still, life is not an illusion, and it's very important that we act, lest we fall into this other side of Neptune, of the suffering victim, the one who feels adrift on the big ocean of life, and it's like, oh, poor is me, and the fates are just turning and tossing me around however they please, and I'm completely oblivious to their power, their influence, so I'm just surrendering. But this is a surrendering which comes from a place of spiritual bypassing and not actually standing embodied in the power of what our will and our ability to act and engage action, meaningful action in the world actually carries. Because it does carry a lot of power, and it's the only place where we truly can alter our fate or destiny, if you will. If you think about that, that is, right, fate is the accumulation of all of our previous actions. So often we're very bound to them. But the only place where we can change them is the now, it's the eternal now, it's here and now. How do you act? How do you react to these things now? How do you lay new patterns? How do you dissolve and dismantle old patterns, right? So acting is encouraged. Still being mindful of not going into overdrive with, I need my desires to fulfill and I'm just acting on an impulse because I feel, where we can like fool ourselves with our intuition and think it's our intuition speaking, but actually it's just the fear of Aries, of not being free, of not being in right relationship, of not having that ideal in the moment right now in front of us. So the temptation can be to act impulsively and irrationally, conning ourselves, basically deceiving ourselves that it's actually our intuition talking. The medicine, the deeper energy it wants to carry is one of realizing that there is an ideal we're all striving for, but that it's also never fully actually achieved. And that brings us, of course, to the other side of Neptune, which also Venus' long stay with Saturn impregnated her a lot with, kind of, and that is these deeper qualities of the Neptune-Pisces archetype of forgiveness, of compassion, of trusting the flow on a deeper level and still acting, not giving up the sword, kind of, picking up the fight. So for these next 5 weeks, trust your intuition, trust your instincts, but also be very discerning and truly listen to your body. Is it coming from a place of fear? Is the fear actually prompting you to act in a way that you might shoot into something? Aries can be very quick and impulsive of shooting and moving energy forward, but then having to backpedal and like, oh my God, what did I get myself into here, right? It's like we can shoot ahead with the Aries archetype a bit, or quite a lot, and then actually have to retrace our steps. The other thing, of course, is that Venus is the ruler of this moon cycle, the Taurus new moon that we just had on the weekend. But she will complete her retrograde journey in full just after the full moon. The full moon will be on the 12th of May, on 22 degrees of Scorpio, Taurus, I think. And then 2 days later, on the 14th of May, Venus will cross 9 degrees of Aries, which is, of course, where we had that last Aries solar eclipse. And then a day later, on the 15th of May, she'll cross 10 degrees of Aries, where she's stationed to go retrograde. So even though now you might already feel this big new impulse and energy to move forward and to take up the sword and to re-engage a sense of courage and agency, which also the Mars retrograde, of course, also talked about, both of them moving from fire back to water, and then actually so to cleanse that fire archetype in a way, to cleanse that Aries and Leo part, which in the end also deals so much with authenticity and boldness and being open and direct and real, showing our true face. Aries and Leo deals so much with the self, right, and the relationship to the self. So even though you might already feel a lot of new fire coming online now, the true breaking points are the moments where really the retrogrades lessons come in full, or the manifestations of all the deep work that we did over the past 1.5 to 2 months with the Venus retrograde. She went retrograde on the 2nd of March. Yeah, so it's exactly 2 months now. We will really see big new forward momentums when she crosses those degrees, the eclipse degree, and then a day later, the degree where she's stationed retrograde. So the 14th and 15th of May. Pay attention to those. And there's 2 more things I wanted to say. Another one is also time-based, and that is, of course, that just the day after this Venus retrograde, after this Venus-Neptune conjunction on Friday, by Saturday, Sunday, Pluto will go retrograde. Pluto's always retrograde for 5.5 months each year. And so in one way, it's not such a big deal. On the other hand, when a planet goes retrograde, it's like it's being conjunct itself. There's this very strong power with that archetype that comes through. And it will also be the first retrograde of Pluto that will be happening exclusively in Aquarius. It won't go back into Capricorn anymore. Since we just had that Mars-Pluto opposition going on with this Mars retrograde for the past 6-7 months, which dealt so much with also being true and authentic and following our heart. And Pluto in Aquarius in general helps us to decondition traumas and dissociations of where we thought fit in or had to fit in or belong or don't belong or feel like an alien, teaching us the power of our authenticity and of our true uniqueness of the Aquarius side. It's also really interesting to note that the day Pluto will go direct again, so in 5.5 months, which is the 14th of October 2025, Venus will be exactly 180 degrees later in the circle. So the exact half of the circle, she will be on 0 degrees of Libra, exactly opposite to where she's now, on 0 degrees, 1 degrees of Aries. The first 6 signs, Aries to Libra, so Aries to Virgo, including Virgo, they deal so much more with the relationship to the self and self-identity. From Libra to Pisces, the second half of the zodiac, deals so much more with our relationship to others and then the greater collective. Showing us also that this Venus cycle, it began in Aries. The Venus conjunction with the Sun, which is truly that midpoint of the retrograde cycle, when she's burned up in the rays of the Sun. And there's this illumination and clarity that comes, which was on the 22nd of March. It's a lot of dates I'm giving you. 22nd of March, just a day or 2 after the equinox, was also on 2 degrees of Aries, exactly where she's meeting Neptune right now. And then to see Pluto goes retrograde as she's meeting Neptune now, and then in 5.5 months, she'll be exactly opposite that point, and that's also exactly opposite Neptune. Of course, on the deepest level, this also talks so much about how can we stand in true inner alignment, Venus, with our values and self-worth and self-love, Venus, self implied by the Aries side, to our instincts, while we are aiming for the dreams and visions and potentials that we want to bring into the world, Neptune. And how can we, Aries, act on them, bring them into reality, which Venus long hanging out with Saturn over the past weeks and weeks and weeks, at the end of Pisces, also talked about in a bit of a different way, but still it's an archetypal pattern repeating. And whenever these patterns really repeat, whether in the transits in the sky for all of us collectively or in your own birth chart, it shows there is something much deeper being signaled here. So this Venus-Neptune conjunction now, while Pluto will go retrograde, finishing up these eclipses, finishing up her retrograde on the heels of the Mars retrograde at the beginning of when Neptune, and then soon, end of May, Saturn will go into Aries. They all talk about these really profound shifts of how we are entering a new sense of self, a new identity, a new reality, new frontiers, new borders, new boundaries, where the bold and the big and the courageous and the fiery and the driven and the ambitious will be favored, where we will feel more and more aligned to that, stepping out of the Neptune Pisces archetype, where the oversensitivity and the association and identification with the victim or the sufferer or the martyr or the one who tries to save everybody, we're letting go of that collectively, right? It's the end of Pisces, and the last 14 years of Neptune in Pisces brought that out so much. There was this huge spiritual awakening and sensitivity being deepened, but at the end of the day also these deeper mythologies and these deeper stories that don't serve us any longer, which now will really favor that Aries archetype. So this is the one thing I wanted to say. So if you mark it in your calendar, 14th of October, I know it's still a long way off, but see whatever seeds you're planting now, how they will come into fruition in these 5.5 months. Because there will be a mirroring. There will also be a disillusioning and confusion moment, Neptune and Venus, in regards to that. And then the last thing is just Venus and Neptune can make for really transcendent, beautiful, deep, enlightening moments and days. Yeah, there can be a lot of confusion, a desire and yearning for something higher and deeper, for deeper meaning, for coming into relationship with something that is more meaningful to us than what we used to live up until now. But at the same time, it's where also the transcendent, the divine love of Neptune can really shine through the earthly human connections, the whether that's in our own body and sensuality or with other people, right? The gaze, the conversation, the hug, that suddenly carries something from the beyond to us and gives us a feeling of like, oh no, there is something divine, there is something beyond this physical reality, and it does nurture me, it does see me, it does hold me. So this can be a very enlightening and beautiful weekend for that as well, where spiritual practices or beautiful dates or social gatherings can take on this very magical quality, which can be infused with this higher divine light of Neptune, right? In the Upanishads of India, and this is maybe why I'm also donning Lakshmi's t-shirt, by the way, right? Both Lakshmi in the Indian traditions, but also Venus, Aphrodite, they were both born of the sea. They were born from the foaming sea, or the milky ocean in the Vedic traditions. And this is, of course, a Neptune archetype, the collective unconscious, the high ideal of spirit, embodying itself in the goddess of love and wealth and beauty, and where also these qualities of beauty and harmony and love and eros and affection and compassion are these vessels for the higher collective ocean, for this divine transcendent energy, which we like to call Neptune astrologically, right? So, yeah, might be very beautiful weekend, might also be very tired or confusing weekend where we feel like, oh, we're striving, we're yearning for something more, but it's not there. But that Aries archetype impels us to act, but still please with a deeper listening to us and another, to still bring into contact and communion through authenticity and openness and realness, to not let that turn into a fight or raising the swords against each other, right? But raising our swords together for the fight of love that we all want to engage in. So, yeah, that's my reflections. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you were able to take all of this in. This was a lot, and I still feel like I just got started. Could talk an hour about this combination. But in the end, it's also a bit of a fleeting moment. It's just this weekend. So yeah. And as always, if you feel like exploring all of this much deeper, of where this sits in your own chart, where these cycles are connecting to your own life and to your own destiny unfolding right now, to your own processes, to your own sorrows, to your own dreams, to your own karmas and dharmas, I'm always open for one-on-one sessions, so I'd love to meet you there. Feel very honored to look into the mirror of your own soul through the lens of astrology. And yeah, up till then, see you next time. Bye-bye.